The dust on Kepler 442b tasted like copper and regret. Commander Marcus Webb wiped his face with a gloved hand and watched the young Vryn soldiers stumble through their formation drills. They were trying their best, but their best looked like a group of kittens trying to march in straight lines. "Tighten up that left flank, Cecil," Marcus called out. His voice was firm but not harsh. The young Vryn female's ears flicked backward in embarrassment, and she adjusted her position. Her fur was a soft gray color, and her large amber eyes showed more fear than focus. Marcus had been assigned to this mining colony 6 months ago as a military advisor. The Galactic Coalition wanted all member species to learn proper combat protocols. The Vryn were good people, quick and clever, but they had never seen real war. Their world had joined the Coalition peacefully, and most of them thought weapons were just tools you carried but never used. The problem was that the frontier colonies were not safe places. Pirates and raiders saw these settlements as easy targets. Marcus had tried to explain this to Commander Zis, the Vryn officer in charge of the local defense force. Joyce had nodded politely, but Marcus could tell he did not really believe danger would come to their quiet mining world. "Sir, how much longer do we need to practice?" asked Kevin, a younger male with orange and white striped fur. He was panting from the exercise, his tongue showing between sharp teeth. "Until you can do it in your sleep," Marcus replied. He walked along the line of soldiers, checking their weapons and gear. There were 12 of them total, all between 18 and 22 years old in human terms. They were barely adults, still growing into their bodies and their confidence. In a real fight, you will not have time to think. Your body needs to know what to do. Commander Zis approached from the colony's main building. He was older than the young soldiers, his gray fur marked with white patches. "Commander Webb, I think that is enough for today. The Cubs need rest before tonight's patrol." Marcus bit back his frustration. The Vryn called their young soldiers Cubs as a term of affection, but it also revealed how they saw them. Not as real warriors, just children playing at being soldiers. "With respect, Commander, they need more training," Marcus said. "The outer sectors have seen increased raider activity. 3 colonies hit in the last month." Jis waved a paw dismissively. "Those colonies were careless. We have proper sensors and defenses. Besides, this is just a routine patrol of the northern mining sites. The Cubs can handle a simple walk." Marcus wanted to argue more, but he knew it would not help. Jis was in charge, and Marcus was only an advisor. He had no real authority here. "At least let me go with them," he said. "Of course," Jis agreed. "You can observe how well your training has prepared them." 2 hours later, Marcus was walking through the rocky canyons north of the colony, with 12 young Vryn soldiers. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the red stone. The Vryn moved quietly, their padded feet making almost no sound. That was one advantage they had. Their species was built for stealth and speed. Cecil walked near the front of the formation, her rifle held ready. She had improved over the months, Marcus noted. She took the training seriously, unlike some of the others who still treated it like a game. "Commander Webb, why did you join the military?" she asked softly. "On your Earth world?" Marcus checked his scanner before answering. "I wanted to protect people who could not protect themselves, and I was good at it." "Are humans really as dangerous as the stories say?" Kevin asked from behind them. "The traders who come to the colony say humans are crazy in battle." "We are survivors," Marcus said. "Earth was not an easy world. We had to fight for everything, but that is not something to be proud of. War is not glorious. It is necessary sometimes, but never good." He was about to say more when his scanner started beeping. Marcus held up his fist and the column stopped. The Vryn looked at him with confusion. "What is it?" Cecil whispered. Marcus studied the scanner's display. Multiple contacts moving fast, coming from 3 directions. His blood turned cold. This was not a random group. This was a planned ambush. "Get down," he shouted. The first blast hit Commander Zis before anyone could move. The older Vryn's chest exploded in a spray of purple blood, and he fell without a sound. The young soldiers froze in shock, staring at their commander's body. "Move. Take cover." Marcus was already dragging Cecil behind a rock formation. More blaster fire rained down from the canyon walls. 2 more Vryn fell screaming. The rest scattered in panic, diving behind whatever cover they could find. Marcus's combat instincts took over. He scanned the canyon walls and counted at least 20 hostiles. Crash raiders from the look of them. Big, armored, and heavily armed. They had chosen their ambush site perfectly. The Vryn were trapped in a kill zone with cliffs on both sides and only 2 ways out. both now covered by enemy fire. "Return fire," Marcus ordered. He aimed his rifle and dropped one of the raiders from the left cliff. "Do not let them pin us down." But the young Vryn were paralyzed with fear. Most of them had never fired a weapon at a living target before. Kevin was crying, curled up behind a rock. Two others were trying to help their wounded friends and getting shot at for their efforts. Another Vryn went down, hit in the leg. She screamed, a high-pitched wail that cut through the sound of weapons fire. That scream seemed to break through the others' shock. A few of them started shooting back, their aim wild, but at least they were fighting. Marcus ran in a crouch to where two wounded Vryn were lying exposed. He grabbed the first one by his vest and dragged him to cover, ignoring the blaster bolts that scorched the ground around him. A shot hit his shoulder plate, cracking the armor but not penetrating. He went back for the second wounded soldier. "Commander, there are too many," Cecil shouted. She was firing now, her shots more controlled than the others. At least the training had stuck with someone. Marcus hauled the second wounded Vryn to safety and assessed the situation. They were outnumbered and outgunned. 3 dead, 3 critically wounded, and 9 still able to fight if he was generous with the definition of able. The Kresh were moving to flank them. In 10 minutes, maybe less, the raiders would have them surrounded. His communicator was damaged from the shot to his shoulder. He tried to call for help but got only static. They were on their own. Marcus looked at the terrified faces around him. These were not soldiers. They were children, barely trained, watching their friends die. Every instinct told him to call for extraction, to get these cubs out of here before more of them got killed. But extraction would take hours. The wounded would not last that long, and the Kresh would hunt them down the moment they ran. Marcus checked his ammunition and looked at the canyon ahead. There was a narrow ravine about 200 meters forward. Rocky walls, multiple defensive positions, only one approach. If they could reach it, they could hold out. "Maybe, listen to me," he shouted over the weapon's fire. "We are going to move forward to that ravine. We carry the wounded. Nobody gets left behind. Do you understand?" Cecil stared at him like he was insane. "Forward? Sir, we should run back to the colony. They will run us down in the open," Marcus said. "We hold that ravine or we die here. Those are our options." He looked at each of them, these frightened cubs who had never asked to be warriors. "I will not leave you. I will not leave anyone behind. But you need to trust me and do exactly what I say." "Can you do that?" Slowly, one by one, they nodded. "Good." Marcus reloaded his rifle and prepared to move. "Then let us show these bastards what happens when they corner scared animals. Even cubs have teeth." The run to the ravine was the longest 200 meters of Marcus Webb's life. He moved backward, firing controlled bursts at the Kresh raiders while the young Vryn soldiers carried their wounded companions. Blaster bolts turned the rocks around them into exploding fragments. The air smelled like ozone and burned flesh. Kevin took a hit to his arm but kept running. Cecil and another Vryn named Torin dragged one of the critically wounded between them, struggling with the weight. Marcus dropped 2 more raiders who tried to rush their position. The Kresh were getting bolder. They knew their prey was trying to escape. "Keep moving," Marcus shouted. "Do not stop." They tumbled into the ravine just as a heavy blaster bolt carved a trench where they had been standing seconds before. The ravine was narrow, maybe 20 meters across, with rocky walls rising 15 meters on each side. It was not perfect, but it was defensible. Marcus had fought in worse places. "Set the wounded there against that wall," he ordered, pointing to a sheltered area. "Cecil, Kevin, Torin, you 3 on the left firing position. You 4 on the right, everyone else with me in the center." The young Vryn moved to follow his orders, but their movements were clumsy and panicked. Marcus grabbed Cecil by the shoulder. "I need you to focus. Can you do that?" Her amber eyes were wide with terror, but she nodded. "Yes, sir." "Good, the Kresh will try to rush us. When they do, wait until they are close. Aim for center mass. Breathe before you shoot. Remember your training." "What training?" she said with a bitter laugh. "We drilled for 3 hours a day. They have been fighting their whole lives." Marcus looked at the blood on her uniform, at the fear in her eyes, and saw himself years ago, young, scared, and watching his friends die. He had failed them. He would not fail these cubs. "Then we make up for it with courage," he said. "And we do not give up, ever." The first Kresh attack came 5 minutes later. 10 of them rushed the ravine entrance, their armor gleaming in the fading sunlight. Marcus waited until they were 30 meters away. "Fire." The Vryn opened up with everything they had. Their aim was poor, Shots going wide or hitting rocks, but volume of fire mattered in a situation like this. 3 Kresh went down. The others scattered for cover, firing back. One Vryn cried out as a bolt grazed his leg. "Conserve your ammunition," Marcus called out. He dropped another raider with a precise shot to the helmet. "Make every shot count." The Kresh retreated, regrouping. Marcus used the brake to check on the wounded. 3 were critical. One had taken a blaster bolt to the chest and was barely breathing. Another had lost most of his left leg. The third was bleeding from multiple wounds. Marcus had basic medical training, but this was beyond battlefield first aid. "Can you help them?" Cecil asked. She had crawled over from her position, her face desperate. "I need you to listen carefully," Marcus said. He pulled a medical kit from his vest. "This foam, you spray it directly into the wounds. It will seal them and stop the bleeding. This injector is for pain. 1 dose per person, no more. Understand?" Cecil's paws were shaking. "I have never done this before." "You can do it," Marcus said firmly. "They need you. I need you on that firing line, but first, save your friends." He turned back to his position just as the Kresh attacked again. This time they came from 2 sides, trying to flank. Marcus directed fire, calling out targets, keeping the young soldiers focused. They were learning fast. Fear was a good teacher when death was the alternative. A bolt hit the rock next to Marcus's head, and sharp stone fragments cut his face. He ignored the blood running down his cheek and kept firing. His shoulder throbbed where the armor had taken the earlier hit. Probably cracked ribs underneath. He pushed the pain away. Hours passed. The Kresh attacked 3 more times. Each time, the Vryn held them off. But they were running low on ammunition and energy. Kevin's wounded arm was useless. 2 more soldiers had taken minor hits. Marcus himself had been grazed, 2 more. During a lull in the fighting, Marcus sat with his back against the ravine wall. Cecil brought him water, and he drank gratefully. The young Vryn looked exhausted, her gray fur matted with dust and blood. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "You could have called for extraction, left us here and saved yourself." Marcus was quiet for a moment, staring at the darkening sky. "I had a squad once. 10 good soldiers. We got ambushed on a colony world called Sigma 6. I called for extraction. Standard procedure. But the extraction ship was 2 hours away and we were pinned down. I ordered my squad to scatter and run. I thought it would give them a better chance." He paused. "The memory's painful even after all these years. 5 of them made it out. 5 did not. I followed orders. I did everything by the book. But I left them behind and they died alone. I swore I would never do that again." Cecil touched his arm gently. "That was not your fault." "Maybe not," Marcus said. "But this time I get to choose differently." A Vryn named Passel approached. He was young, barely 19, with brown-spotted fur. "Sir, we are down to 30% ammunition. And the wounded. Tarek is not going to make it." Marcus stood up despite his protesting body. He walked to where the wounded lay. Tarek was the one with the chest wound. His breathing was shallow and purple blood soaked the bandages. The young Vryn's eyes found Marcus. "Did we hold them?" Tarek whispered. "You held them," Marcus said, kneeling beside him. "You are a good soldier, Tarek. Tell my clutch. Tell them." Tarek's eyes closed and his breathing stopped. Marcus closed the young Vryn's eyes and stood slowly. The others were watching him, waiting to see what he would do. They needed him to be strong, to have answers. But he was just a man and he was out of good options. "We need to tell them something," Kevin said, his voice breaking. "We need to give them hope." Marcus looked at these cubs, these children forced to become warriors in one terrible day. He thought about the songs his own drill sergeant had taught him, the cadences that kept soldiers moving when everything else failed. "My people have a saying," Marcus began. "When the night is darkest, when death is certain, we sing. We sing to remember why we fight. We sing to honor the fallen. We sing so the enemy knows we are not afraid." "We do not know human songs," Cecil said. "Then I will teach you." Marcus started with something simple, a marching song from his basic training. The words were about holding the line, about standing with your brothers and sisters, about never giving up. His voice was rough, cracked from thirst and smoke, but he sang anyway. The Vryn listened, and slowly some of them started humming along. It was not pretty, but it was something. It was defiance. It was hope. Then the scanner started beeping again. Marcus checked it and felt his blood turn cold. More contacts. A lot more. The Kresh had called in reinforcements. How many? Cecil asked, seeing his face. Marcus looked at the scanner readings. At least 50, maybe more. They were being surrounded. This was no longer a skirmish. This was an execution. All of them, he said quietly. The Kresh attacked at dawn in a massive wave. They came from 3 sides, firing constantly, trying to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Marcus moved along the firing line, directing fire, encouraging the Vryn, making every second count. A raider broke through on the left. Marcus shot him down, but 2 more followed. He drew his combat knife and met them hand to hand, his rifle empty. The first one he took down with a shot from his sidearm. The second got close enough to strike him with a rifle butt. Marcus felt his ribs crack, but he drove his knife up under the Kresh's armor, into the soft tissue of the throat. More were coming. Too many. Marcus's vision was getting blurry. Blood loss, exhaustion, injuries catching up to him. He stumbled back to the center of the ravine, trying to stay on his feet. "Sir, you are bleeding badly." Cecil was there, trying to support him. "I'm fine," Marcus lied. "Get back to your position." But he was not fine. He was dying, and they all knew it. The Kresh knew it too. They were pulling back, waiting. They could afford to wait. Time was on their side. Marcus looked at the young Vryn around him. They were battered, exhausted, down to their last ammunition, but they were still fighting, still standing. These cubs had found something inside themselves today. Something fierce. "Listen to me," Marcus said, gathering them close. His voice was weak, but they heard him. "I am going to draw them away. Buy you time. When I do, you run. Get back to the colony." "No," Cecil said immediately. "You said nobody gets left behind." "I am not leaving you," Marcus said. "I am saving you." "There is a difference." He started toward the ravine entrance, but Cecil grabbed his arm. "You taught us that we do not give up, that we hold the line. You do not get to break your own rule, Commander." Marcus looked at her, at all of them. These brave cubs who should never have had to fight this battle. He had taught them too well. "Then we hold together," he said. He made it 3 more steps before his legs gave out and everything went black. Marcus Webb woke to the sound of explosions. His body felt like it was made of broken glass and fire. Every breath sent sharp pain through his cracked ribs. His vision was blurry and he could taste blood in his mouth. "He is awake," Cecil's voice, urgent and scared. Marcus tried to sit up, but gentle paws pushed him back down. "Stay still, sir. You are hurt badly." Memory came flooding back. The ravine. The Kresh, the cubs. He forced his eyes to focus. He was lying against the ravine wall, bandages wrapped around his chest and shoulder. Cecil crouched beside him, her gray fur matted with dirt and blood. Beyond her, the other young Vryn were at their firing positions, sending desperate shots toward the ravine entrance. "How long was I out?" Marcus asked. 20 minutes, Cecil said. "The Kresh pulled back after you fell. They are just watching us now. Waiting." Marcus grabbed her arm and pulled himself into a sitting position, ignoring the pain that shot through his entire body. He could see the enemy through the haze. They had formed a perimeter around the ravine, taking their time. They knew the defenders were finished. "Your communicator?" he asked. "Damaged like yours. We are alone, Commander." Marcus's mind was working despite the pain and exhaustion. Alone, outnumbered, low on ammunition. His squad was dead. No, not his squad. Not this time. These cubs were still breathing, still fighting. He would not let them die here. Something changed inside Marcus in that moment. Something primal and old, born from 1,000,000 years of human evolution. From ancestors who fought saber-toothed tigers with sharpened sticks. From soldiers who held impossible lines throughout history. From every human who ever stood between the innocent and the darkness. The Kresh thought they were watching prey die slowly. They were wrong. They had cornered something far more dangerous than they understood. They had backed a human into a corner with nothing left to lose. Marcus stood up, steadying himself against the wall. His vision cleared, sharpened by adrenaline and purpose. He checked his weapons. Almost no ammunition left. A knife, 3 grenades. His own 2 hands and a lifetime of knowing how to kill. "Sir, what are you doing?" Kevin asked from his position. "Changing the game," Marcus said. His voice was different now. Colder, harder. The voice of a predator, not prey. He looked at the Kresh positions, counting them, analyzing their formation. They had made a mistake. They thought they were hunters, so they had spread out to watch all the exits. They were not expecting their prey to attack. "Cecil, you are in command now," Marcus said. "Keep everyone in this ravine." No matter what you see or hear, you stay here. Understand? Commander, you cannot. That was an order, soldier. Marcus's eyes met hers, and she saw something there that made her step back. This was not the patient teacher who had drilled them for months. This was something else entirely. Something that other species whispered about in trading posts and bars across the galaxy. This was a human going to war. Marcus climbed out of the ravine before anyone could stop him. He moved low and fast, using the rocks for cover. The creche on the perimeter saw him and started shouting, bringing their weapons up. Marcus was already moving, faster than they expected from a wounded man. The first grenade went into a cluster of 3 raiders taking cover behind a rock formation. The explosion scattered them, and Marcus was there before they could recover. His knife found throats and eye slits, the weak points in their armor. He moved like a ghost, appearing and disappearing in the smoke and dust. The creche started firing wildly, trying to track him. But Marcus was not where they expected. He had fought on 100 worlds in every terrain imaginable. He knew how to use the environment, how to turn enemy positions into death traps. His second grenade went into a group trying to flank his position. 4 more down. The creche were shouting in their harsh language, confused and angry. They had been hunters. Now they were being hunted. Marcus circled around to the high ground where the creche commander had set up his command post. 2 guards stood watch. Marcus threw a rock to the left, and when they turned, he came from the right. The first guard died with a knife in his spine. The second got his weapon up, but Marcus twisted it away and used the butt to crush the raider's throat. The creche commander was reaching for his communicator when Marcus entered the command post. The commander was huge, nearly 7 feet tall, armored and armed. He roared a challenge and charged. Marcus sidestepped the charge and drove his knife into the joint where the commander's arm met his armor. The commander screamed and backhanded Marcus, sending him flying into a rock wall. Stars exploded in Marcus's vision. Broken ribs ground together. Blood filled his mouth. The commander advanced, drawing a massive blade. He was saying something in his language, probably about how he would kill the human slowly. Marcus did not understand the words, but he understood the intent. He pushed himself up, swaying, barely able to stand. The commander swung his blade. Marcus dodged left, the blade missing by inches. He could not trade blows with this creature. It was bigger, stronger, and less injured. But humans did not win fights by being stronger. They won by being smarter. Marcus feinted right, and when the commander committed to the block, Marcus dropped low and drove his knife up under the armor skirt into the commander's groin. The commander bellowed in pain. Marcus ripped the knife sideways and rolled away as the massive alien fell, bleeding out. Marcus grabbed the commander's rifle and stumbled out of the command post. The creche forces had fallen into chaos. Their leader was dead. A human was loose among them, killing with a precision that terrified them. They had heard stories about humans, but stories were different from reality. From the ravine, Cecil and the other young Vryn watched in stunned silence. They had seen Marcus fight before, during training exercises and in the first hours of the battle. But this was different. This was not a soldier following doctrine. This was something more primal. Marcus moved through the creche positions like a storm. He used their own weapons against them, their own cover to set ambushes. When he ran out of ammunition, he used his knife. When the knife broke, he used rocks and his bare hands. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, his armor shattered, his body held together by willpower and rage. The creche started to retreat. The raiders who had come expecting easy prey were running from a single wounded human. They fired wildly as they fled, trying to cover their escape. Marcus let them run. He was not trying to kill them all. He was breaking their will to fight. He stumbled back toward the ravine, his body finally failing. He collapsed halfway there, unable to take another step. The world was spinning, turning dark. He had bought the cubs time, maybe enough time for rescue to arrive. That would have to be enough. Strong paws grabbed him under the arms, dragging him. "We have you, sir," Cecil's voice said. "We have you." Marcus opened his eyes and saw that all the young Vryn had left the ravine. They formed a protective circle around him, weapons ready, facing outward. They were not leaving him any more than he had left them. "I told you to stay in the ravine," Marcus managed to say. "You taught us not to leave people behind," Cecil replied. "That includes stubborn humans." They pulled Marcus back to the ravine and laid him against the wall. He drifted in and out of consciousness. When he was aware, he could hear the cubs talking quietly. They were organizing a defensive perimeter, rationing ammunition, caring for the wounded. They sounded different now. Not scared children anymore. Something had changed in them too. Passel approached Cecil. What do we do now? The Kresh are regrouping. They will come back. Cecil looked at Marcus's broken body, at the trail of enemy dead he had left across the battlefield, at her fellow soldiers who had somehow survived this nightmare. We do what the commander did. We fight. We hold. We do not give up. We are almost out of ammunition, Kevin said. His wounded arm was wrapped in a makeshift sling. Then we use rocks, Cecil said. We use our claws. We use whatever we have to. The commander showed us that it is not about having the best weapons or the most training. It is about refusing to quit. Torin, who had been quiet most of the battle, spoke up. He fought like the old stories. Like a demon. I have never seen anything like it. That is what humans are, Cecil said quietly. They do not give up. Ever. When you corner them, when you hurt them, when you kill their friends, they do not break. They get angry. And an angry human is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. She checked her rifle and moved to her firing position. The Kresh made a mistake. They hurt our commander. They killed our friends. Now we show them that the cubs learn from the best teacher. Marcus heard this through his fog of pain and unconsciousness. These cubs, these children who had been so scared just hours ago, were talking like soldiers, like warriors, like humans. His scanner started beeping. More contacts incoming. Marcus tried to warn them, but his voice would not work. He tried to move to get up to help them. His body refused to obey. Cecil saw the scanner readings and understood. A Kresh battleship in orbit. Dropships launching. The ground forces had just been the first wave. The real attack was coming. She looked at her fellow Vryn, at Commander Webb bleeding out against the wall, at the impossible situation they faced. She thought about running, about calling for extraction and hoping they could escape, about all the logical, sensible things they should do. Then she thought about what Marcus had taught them. Not the drills or the weapon train. The dropships descended like dark rain against the setting suns. Cecil counted 6 of them, each carrying at least 20 Kresh soldiers. Over 100 fresh enemies against 9 exhausted, wounded Vryn cubs and 1 dying human. The odds were impossible. They land in 4 minutes, Torin said, watching the scanners. His paws were steady now, no longer shaking like they had been during the first attack. They will land on the flat area to the north, then advance on our position. Cecil's mind was racing. Marcus had taught them tactics, but he had taught them something more important. He had taught them to think like humans, to see opportunities where others saw only defeat, to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. We cannot defend the ravine against that many, she said slowly. They will surround us and pour fire from all sides until we are dead. So what do we do? Kevin asked. Cecil looked at the ravine, at the rocky terrain, at the wounded, including Commander Webb. An idea formed. A crazy, desperate idea. The kind of idea a human would have. We do not defend the ravine, she said. We attack. The others stared at her like she had lost her mind. Attack? Passel said. There are over 100 of them. Exactly. They expect us to be here trapped and waiting to die. They will land, form up, and advance carefully. But what if we are not here? What if we hit them while they are still landing? While they are disorganized? That is suicide, another Vryn named Hess said. So is sitting here, Cecil replied. She was surprised by how calm she felt. Hours ago she had been terrified. Now she felt something different. Not fearlessness, but purpose. Commander Webb showed us that you do not win by having better odds. You win by making the enemy fight your battle, not theirs. She started giving orders, and to her surprise the others listened. They were following her. She was in command now, and the weight of that responsibility was heavy. But Marcus had trusted her. He had said she could do this. She would not let him down. Torin, Hess, you stay here with the wounded. If any Kresh make it past us, you are the last line. Understand? They nodded, taking positions that covered the ravine entrance. Everyone else, we are moving fast and light. Leave everything except weapons and what ammunition we have left. She turned to look at Marcus. He was unconscious, his breathing shallow. She knelt beside him and whispered, We learned from you, Commander. Watch us make you proud. Then she led 6 young Vryn out of the ravine, moving through the rocks toward the landing zone. They moved the way Marcus had taught them, using cover, staying low, conserving energy. But they also moved the way their own species was designed to move. Silent. Fast. Predators of a different kind than humans, but predators nonetheless. The first dropship was landing when they got into position. Cecil watched as the Kresh deployed, forming ranks, checking weapons. They were confident. Why would they not be? They outnumbered the defenders 20-1. Wait for my signal, Cecil whispered. Remember what the commander taught us. Aim for center mass. Controlled bursts. Make every shot count. The Kresh started moving toward the ravine in formation. That was when Cecil gave the signal. The Cubs opened fire from 3 sides. The Kresh, caught completely by surprise, scattered. Several fell in the first seconds. The others dove for cover, returning fire wildly. They had no idea how many attackers there were or where they were shooting from. Cecil and her team fired and moved, never staying in one position for more than a few seconds. It was the tactic Marcus had drilled into them endlessly. Shoot, move, never let the enemy pin you down. A second dropship landed and more Kresh poured out. Cecil threw her last grenade into the cluster of enemies. The explosion knocked several down. Kevin, despite his wounded arm, dropped 3 more with careful shots. The Kresh started to organize, forming a perimeter. Cecil signaled the retreat and the Cubs melted back into the rocks. The Kresh advanced cautiously, expecting another ambush. They were learning to fear these young soldiers who fought like demons. How many did we get? Pasil asked when they regrouped. Maybe 15, Cecil said. Not enough. But we slowed them down and made them scared. They are spreading out now, Kevin observed. Looking for us, Cecil thought fast. Marcus would not just run. He would use this. The Kresh were spread out, searching. That made them vulnerable. Small groups could be picked off. We split into 3 teams, she said. 2 in each team. Hit them from different sides. Fast strikes, then fade away. Make them think we are everywhere. It was insane. It was desperate. It was exactly what a human would do. For the next hour, the Cubs waged a guerrilla war against an enemy 10 times their number. They struck from the rocks from unexpected angles, disappearing before the Kresh could react. They used the terrain like Marcus had taught them, turning every stone and shadow into cover. Pasil and Hess ambushed a patrol, dropping 4 Kresh before vanishing. Kevin, fighting one-handed, set a trap that took down 3 more. Cecil herself killed the commander of the second dropship, throwing the enemy into further confusion. But they were running out of ammunition and energy. Each fight took something from them. Pasil was hit in the shoulder. Kevin's wounded arm was bleeding through the bandages. Cecil had burns from a near miss. They regrouped near the ravine, exhausted and desperate. They had done damage more than they had any right to do, but the Kresh were still coming. Still too many. We cannot keep this up, Pasil said. He was breathing hard, holding his wounded shoulder. We have to, Cecil said. If they reach the commander and the other wounded, a blaster bolt hit the rock next to her head. The Kresh had found them. They came in a wave, at least 30 of them, determined to end this fight. The Cubs fell back to the ravine entrance, forming a last defensive line. They were out of grenades, almost out of ammunition, running on nothing but will. This was it. The final stand. Cecil thought about her clutch, about her family back in the colony. She thought about Commander Ziss and the others who had died in the first minutes of this nightmare. She thought about Marcus, broken and bleeding, who had refused to leave them behind. If we die here, she said to the others, we die as soldiers, as warriors. The Kresh will remember us. Maybe we do not die, Kevin said. There was something strange in his voice. Not hope exactly, but something fierce. Maybe we show them what the commander showed us. That sometimes the cornered animal wins. The Kresh advanced, firing steadily. The Cubs returned fire with what little they had left. 1 shot, 2, 3, each one counted, each one bought another second of life. Then something happened. Marcus Webb's eyes opened. He heard the sounds of battle, saw the Cubs making their final stand. His body was broken, but his mind was clear. These children had become soldiers. They had learned his lessons. But they were about to die unless he could help them one more time. He forced himself to sit up, ignoring the screaming pain. His rifle was empty. His knife was lost somewhere on the battlefield. But his mind still worked. His knowledge was still there. Cecil, he called out, his voice weak but clear. The left cliff. Unstable rock face. 4 shots at the base will bring it down on them. Cecil looked where he indicated and saw it. A large overhang of rock already cracked and loose. If it fell, it would crush at least half the advancing Kresh. Torin, Kevin, Pasil, concentrate fire on that point, she ordered. The 4 Vrin focused their shots on the base of the overhang. 1 shot, 2, 3, the 4th shot did it. The rock face cracked with a sound like thunder and came down in an avalanche. Kresh soldiers screamed as tons of stone buried them. The surviving Kresh fell back in shock. The cubs cheered, a fierce sound that echoed off the canyon walls. Again, Marcus said. The right side. That rock formation. Same tactic. The cubs did it again, bringing down another section of cliff on the retreating enemies. The Kresh were now in full retreat. The hunters become the hunted, terrified of these impossible defenders. Marcus collapsed back, his energy spent. But he was smiling. These cubs had done it. Against impossible odds they had held. Cecil knelt beside him. Stay with us, Commander. We still need you. You do not, Marcus said softly. You figured it out. You became what I knew you could be. What is that? She asked. Survivors. Warriors. He coughed and blood flecked his lips. Tell them. Tell everyone. The cubs bled in battle, but they did not break. His eyes closed again, his breathing shallow. Cecil pressed her paw against his chest, feeling the weak heartbeat. He was dying. They had won the battle, but they were losing their teacher. No, she said fiercely. You do not get to die, Commander. You said we do not give up. That means you too. She looked at the others. New plan. We hold this position. We keep the commander alive. We wait for rescue. And if more Kresh come, we kill them too. We are not victims anymore. We are not scared cubs. We are soldiers, and soldiers do not quit. The young Vryn straightened despite their wounds and exhaustion. They had learned well. They had become something more than what they were. And in the distance, finally, they heard the sound of coalition rescue ships approaching. Help was coming. They had survived. The cubs had bled in battle. But they had also learned to roar. The rescue ships came in fast, their weapons lighting up the sky as they drove away the remaining Kresh forces. Coalition Marines in full combat armor secured the perimeter, while medical teams rushed to the ravine. What they found there became a story that would spread across 100 worlds. 9 young Vryn soldiers, wounded and exhausted, standing guard over their fallen comrades and one barely alive human. The battlefield around them told a story of impossible survival. Over 40 enemy dead, defensive positions that showed tactical brilliance. And in the center of it all, these cubs who should have died in the first minutes had held for nearly 8 hours. The lead medic, a Therian named Quess, approached carefully. He had seen combat zones before, but something about these young soldiers made him cautious. Their eyes were different, harder. They held their weapons ready, unwilling to let strangers approach until they were certain of safety. We are Coalition Medical, Quess said gently, showing his empty hands. We are here to help. Cecil lowered her rifle slowly. Commander Webb needs help first, then our other wounded. We have enough medics for everyone, Quess assured her, but when he approached Marcus, Cecil moved between them, protective. You will save him, she said. It was not a question. It was an order from someone who had learned to command. Quess looked at the human's wounds and felt his heart sink. Severe blood loss, broken ribs, internal bleeding, multiple lacerations, and what looked like the early stages of shock. We will do everything we can. They loaded Marcus onto a stretcher and rushed him to the medical ship. The young Vryn refused to leave his side. All of them, even the ones who needed treatment themselves, crowded into the medical bay. The doctors tried to make them leave, but one look at their faces made it clear that would not happen. Cecil stood at the foot of Marcus's medical bed, watching the doctors work. They had removed his armor, revealing the full extent of his injuries. Burns, cuts, and bruises covered his body. One doctor counted 17 separate wounds. It was a miracle he was still alive. He went out there alone, Cecil told the head doctor, against 50 Kresh while wounded. To save us. The doctor, a human woman named Chen, looked at the young Vryn. You are his squad? We are his cubs, Cecil said simply. Dr. Chen nodded slowly, understanding something in that statement that went beyond military ranks. She had seen many soldiers come through her medical bay over the years. She recognized the look in these young aliens' eyes. They had been through something that changed them forever. He is stable now, Dr. Chen said after an hour of work, but he will need weeks of recovery. Maybe months. We will wait, Cecil said, and they did. The young Vryn refused to leave the medical ship. They slept in the corridor outside Marcus's room. When he had nightmares and called out in his sleep, Cecil would go to him and tell him that everyone was safe, that they had held the line, that no one else had died. On the third day, Marcus woke up properly for the first time. His eyes opened to find Cecil sitting beside his bed, cleaning her rifle. "You should be resting," he said, his voice rough. "So should you," she replied. "But here we are. The others?" "Alive, all of us." "Because of you." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "No, because of all of us. I just showed you the way. You walked the path." Coalition Command came to debrief them on the 5th day. Admiral Torrance, a stern Karathi officer, interviewed each of the survivors separately. What he heard stunned him. The tactical decisions, the courage, the sheer determination. These young soldiers had fought like veterans. When he interviewed Cecil, he asked her to describe the battle. She did, leaving nothing out. The fear, the deaths. Marcus's one-man assault. Their own desperate guerrilla campaign. "Why did you not call for extraction?" the Admiral asked. "Commander Webb could not be moved. The wounded would have died and—" Cecil paused. "And he taught us that we do not leave people behind, ever. That is what humans do." "That is what we learned to do." The Admiral made some notes. "You do realize that what you described should have been impossible. 9 soldiers against over 100. We had a good teacher," Cecil said simply. The Admiral looked at this young Vryn who had commanded a desperate last stand against impossible odds. "Indeed you did. The Coalition would like to offer you a position at the Advanced Warfare Academy. Your entire surviving squad, actually. You have all earned it." Cecil shook her head. "Thank you, sir. But we go where Commander Webb goes, all of us. We are his squad." "He is just a training advisor," the Admiral said. "No," Cecil corrected gently. "He is our father. That is what my people call the one who raises you, who teaches you to survive, who protects the cubs. He is our father and we are his family now." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Then I will speak to Commander Webb about his next assignment when he recovers. Something that includes a squad of very capable soldiers." Marcus was released from intensive care after 2 weeks. He still needed a cane to walk, and his ribs would take months to fully heal. But he was alive. He walked slowly down the corridor of the medical ship, heading to the recovery ward. What he found there made him stop in his tracks. The 9 young Vryn were in a makeshift barracks they had created. They were drilling together, practicing hand-to-hand combat moves, cleaning weapons, training, just like he had taught them. When they saw him, they all snapped to attention. Perfect military posture. These were not the scared cubs from 2 weeks ago. These were soldiers. "At ease," Marcus said softly. They relaxed but kept their eyes on him. Cecil approached, holding something in her paws. It was a patch embroidered with an image of a Vryn paw print overlapping a human handprint. "We made these," she said, "for our squad. The cubs and the human who brought them home. We wanted to know. Would you lead us? Officially?" Marcus looked at these young warriors who had learned from him, who had survived because they refused to give up. "I would be honored," he said. There was a ceremony 3 days later. The Coalition gave medals to all of them. Medals for valor, for courage under fire, for holding an impossible position. But the ceremony that mattered more was the private one afterward. In Vryn culture, there was a ritual for adopting someone into a clan. The young soldiers performed it for Marcus, speaking the old words in their language. They marked his arm with their clan symbols, made him one of them. And Marcus, who had lost his first squad and carried that guilt for years, found himself part of a family again. "What do we call ourselves?" Kevin asked afterward. They were all wearing their new patches, the ones that showed cubs and human together. "How about Webb's cubs?" Torrance suggested. Marcus smiled. "Just the cubs is fine. You earned that name with blood and courage. You do not need my name attached." "With respect, sir," Cecil said, "we want your name. You brought us home. You taught us to be warriors. We are your cubs, and we are proud of that." So they became Webb's Cubs, a squad that would become legendary across the Coalition. The human advisor and 9 Vryn soldiers who had held against impossible odds. They trained together, fought together, and became a model for mixed-species units across the galaxy. Months later, Marcus stood before a memorial wall at the Coalition military headquarters. He had added the names of Commander Zis and the 3 young Vryn who had died in the first minutes of the ambush. His hand traced their names carved in stone. "They died protecting us," Cecil said, standing beside him. "They were brave." "They were," Marcus agreed. "And we honor them by living well, by being the soldiers they never got the chance to become." She touched the names gently. "Do you think they would be proud?" Of what we became? I know they would. They stood there in silence for a moment, remembering. Then Marcus turned to see the rest of the squad waiting for him. They had a new assignment. Another frontier colony that needed help. More young soldiers to train. Ready to go teach some new cubs? Cecil asked. Marcus picked up his gear bag. His ribs still ached, and he would probably always walk with a slight limp. But he was alive, and he had a family. A strange, wonderful family of young aliens who called him father and followed him anywhere. Always ready, he said. As they walked toward the transport, Kevin started singing. It was the marching song Marcus had taught them in the ravine, during the darkest moment of the battle. The others joined in, their voices blending human words with Vryn harmonies. The song about holding the line, about standing with your brothers and sisters, about never giving up. Other soldiers stopped to watch them pass. Webb's cubs, the squad that should have died but refused to. The human and the cubs who had learned from each other and become something more than either species alone. Back in the corridor of command, Admiral Torrance watched them go. His aide stood beside him. Do you think they know how famous they have become? The aide asked. There are recruiters using their story to inspire new soldiers across 50 worlds. They know, the Admiral said. But I do not think they care. They did not fight for glory. They fought because their teacher told them not to give up, and they listened. What makes humans so effective as teachers? The aide wondered. Thank you for watching, and comment for next part.